You're nothing but a janitor, Daniel. You think any judge will choose you over me? Standing in a glass-walled law office, Daniel Brooks, a single father who scrubbed floors to feed his daughter, faced the woman who once vowed to love him. Lauren Hale didn't want their child back out of love. She wanted $50,000, and she'd used their daughter Emma as leverage to get it. But what Lauren didn't know was that someone had been watching, someone powerful, and tonight, everything was about to change. If you're ready to witness a father's fight for justice, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights of Patterson and Associates hummed overhead, casting sterile shadows across the polished mahogany conference table. Daniel Brooks sat rigidly in a chair that probably cost more than his monthly rent, his work-worn hands folded in his lap, dirt still visible under his fingernails from tonight's shift. The clock on the wall read 9:47 p.m. He'd come straight from the office building where he worked nights, still wearing his janitor's uniform, navy blue with his name stitched crookedly above the breast pocket. Across from him sat Lauren Hale. Not Lauren Brooks anymore. She'd reclaimed her maiden name the moment the divorce was finalized, as if erasing their 7 years of marriage could erase the mistakes she'd made. She looked nothing like the woman he'd married. Her blonde hair was styled in sharp angles that matched the severe cut of her designer suit. Diamond earrings caught the light every time she moved her head. Everything about her screamed money. Money she hadn't earned but had acquired through her new boyfriend, some investment banker named Marcus, who drove a Porsche and summoned lawyers the way other people ordered coffee. Lauren's attorney, Richard Whitmore, sat beside her like a trained predator. His silver hair was slicked back, his suit probably worth more than Daniel's car. He'd barely acknowledged Daniel's presence, treating him like part of the furniture, which Daniel supposed was fitting given his profession. "Mr. Brooks," Whitmore began, his voice smooth as aged whiskey and just as intoxicating to those who didn't know better. "My client has a very simple proposition for you." Daniel said nothing. He'd learned in his 32 years that silence was often the best defense when you had no weapons. Lauren leaned forward, her red lips curling into something that might have been a smile if it had contained any warmth. "I want Emma back." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow, though he didn't let it show. Emma, his daughter, his entire world. The 6-year-old girl with pigtails and gap-toothed smiles who still believed her daddy could fix anything. "You gave up custody," Daniel said quietly. "A year ago. You said you couldn't handle being a mother right now. You said you needed to find yourself." "People change, Daniel." Lauren examined her manicured nails as if the conversation bored her. "I'm in a much better position now. Marcus and I are getting married. We have a beautiful home in Belmont Heights. Emma deserves better than a 1-bedroom apartment in the Mission District." "She has everything she needs." "Does she?" Lauren's eyes flashed. "Does she have dance lessons? Piano? A bedroom that isn't also her father's living room? I've done my research, Daniel. You work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. scrubbing toilets and emptying trash cans. You sleep while she's at school. You're barely present in her life." Daniel's jaw tightened. Every word was designed to cut, and Lauren had always known exactly where to aim the knife. "I'm present every moment I can be," he said, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "I make her breakfast before school. I pick her up every day at 3:30. We do homework together. I read to her every night before bed. I may work nights, but I'm there when it matters." "How noble!" Lauren's voice dripped with sarcasm. The struggling single father sacrificing everything for his child. It's very touching, Daniel, but judges care about stability, resources, opportunity. And let's be honest, what can you really offer her? Whitmore cleared his throat, drawing their attention. "Mr. Brooks, let me cut to the chase. My client is prepared to file for full custody. Given her current financial situation and living arrangements, compared to yours, well, I think we both know how that would likely proceed." Daniel felt ice flood his veins. "You can't—" "We can," Lauren interrupted, "and we will, unless—" There it was, the trap. Daniel could see it now, laid out before him like a bear snare hidden under leaves. "Unless what?" Unless you agree to my client's settlement offer, Whitmore said, sliding a manila folder across the table. $50,000, and my client will agree to maintain the current custody arrangement. Daniel stared at the folder as if it contained a live snake. You're blackmailing me. We're offering you a solution, Lauren corrected. Think of it as child support. Retroactive child support for the year I've been gone. It's only fair, Daniel. I supported you through college while you got your degree in, what was it, architecture? And what did that get me? A husband who couldn't hold down a job and ended up pushing a mop. The words were meant to humiliate, and they succeeded. Daniel felt heat rise to his face. The shame of every failure, every rejection letter, every interview that went nowhere flooding back. He'd graduated top of his class from Berkeley, had such dreams. But the recession had hit, firms had folded, and by the time the market recovered, he had a wife and child to support. The entry-level positions went to fresh graduates. The senior positions required experience he didn't have. The janitor job was supposed to be temporary. That was 5 years ago. I don't have $50,000, Daniel said quietly. Then find it. Lauren stood, smoothing her skirt. You have 2 weeks. If you don't pay, I file for custody. And Daniel? She leaned down, close enough that he could smell her expensive perfume. I will win. You know I will. You're a broke janitor who works nights. I'm engaged to a successful businessman with a 4-bedroom house. What judge wouldn't choose me? One who cares about what's best for Emma, Daniel said, meeting her eyes. She's not a bargaining chip, Lauren. She's our daughter. She's my daughter, Lauren hissed. I carried her for 9 months. I gave birth to her. You were just the sperm donor who couldn't provide for his family. Daniel stood slowly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. He was 6 feet tall, and he used every inch of it now, looking down at the woman who'd once promised to stand beside him through anything. I won't give you a dime, he said quietly. If you want to fight for custody, then fight. But you won't buy my daughter like she's some piece of property. Lauren's face flushed with anger. You self-righteous, we're done here. Daniel turned toward the door. You'll regret this. Lauren's voice rose to a shrill pitch. I will take her from you, Daniel. I will make sure you never see her again. Daniel's hand was on the doorknob when Whitmore spoke. Mr. Brooks, I strongly advise you to reconsider. The courts favor mothers, especially mothers with means. You're fighting a losing battle. Daniel looked back over his shoulder. Maybe, but at least I'll be able to look my daughter in the eye and tell her I fought for her because I love her. Not because I wanted to extort money from someone who can barely afford groceries. He walked out before either of them could respond, the door closing behind him with a soft click that felt like a punctuation mark on the end of his old life. The rain started as soon as Daniel stepped outside. Of course it did. The universe had a sense of humor like that. He stood on the sidewalk outside Patterson and Associates, a gleaming glass tower in the financial district that housed a dozen law firms, each one more expensive than the last. The building loomed above him, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces, a monument to power and money, everything Daniel didn't have. The rain came down harder, soaking through his thin uniform jacket. He didn't have an umbrella, couldn't afford one. Besides, what was the point? He was already drowning, $50,000. The number kept echoing in his mind. He made $28,000 a year before taxes. He had $600 in his checking account and another $300 in savings that he was supposed to be keeping for Emma's birthday next month. His car was 12 years old and needed new brakes. His apartment was rent-controlled but still took 60% of his income. He bought generic cereal and shopped at discount stores and sometimes skipped meals to make sure Emma had enough. Where was he supposed to find $50,000 in 2 weeks? Daniel pulled out his phone, water droplets speckling the cracked screen. He scrolled through his contacts, but who could he call? His parents were dead, car accident when he was 23. Lauren's parents had cut him off the moment the divorce was finalized. He had a few college friends, but they drifted away when his life fell apart. When you couldn't afford to go out for drinks or dinner, when you couldn't make it to weddings because you couldn't afford the travel, people stopped inviting you. It wasn't malicious, it was just reality. He was alone. The rain plastered his hair to his forehead, ran down his face like tears he was too proud to shed. Above him, he could see the lights of the law office, Lauren's silhouette visible through the glass. She was probably laughing, celebrating her victory with Whitmore and whatever assistant had stayed late to witness the humiliation. Daniel closed his eyes and thought about Emma. This morning she'd made him a picture in school, a crayon drawing of the two of them holding hands outside their apartment building. She'd written, "I love you, Daddy," in big purple letters across the top, the words crooked and misspelled but perfect in every way that mattered. "We're a team, right, Daddy?" she'd said as she handed it to him. "Right, sweetheart. Always a team." How could he tell her that Mommy was trying to take her away? How could he explain that sometimes love wasn't enough, that the world ran on money and power, and they had neither? The sound of an engine made him open his eyes. A black limousine was pulling up to the curb. Daniel stepped back instinctively. Limos didn't stop for guys like him. It was probably picking up some lawyer or executive from one of the offices above, someone whose hourly rate exceeded Daniel's weekly salary. But the car stopped directly in front of him. The rear window rolled down smoothly, revealing darkness within. Then a voice, crisp, professional, female, cut through the rain. "Daniel Brooks?" Daniel froze. How did they know his name? Yes? "Get in, please. You're getting soaked." "I think you have the wrong..." "I have exactly the right person. Please, Mr. Brooks, I'd like to speak with you." Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that normal people didn't get picked up by mysterious limousines on rainy nights. But Daniel was beyond caring about normal. His entire life had just imploded. What did he have to lose? He opened the door and slid inside. The interior was warm, dry, and smelled faintly of leather and something floral, jasmine maybe. Soft amber lighting illuminated the cabin, revealing a woman sitting across from him. She was perhaps 50, though it was hard to tell. Her dark hair was cut in a precise bob, streaked with elegant silver at the temples. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Daniel's entire wardrobe, and her posture radiated the kind of confidence that came from never having to ask permission for anything. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and currently studying Daniel with an intensity that made him feel like a specimen under a microscope. "You're probably wondering who I am," she said. "The thought had crossed my mind." A slight smile touched her lips. "My name is Victoria Ashford. I'm the CEO of Ashford Industries." Daniel's stomach dropped. Ashford Industries was one of the largest real estate development firms in the state. They built skyscrapers, shopping centers, entire neighborhoods. Their corporate headquarters took up 3 floors of the building where Daniel worked, where Daniel was a janitor. "I clean your offices," Daniel said quietly. "I know. Building C, floors 18 through 20, Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You've worked for our contracted cleaning company for 3 years now." Daniel's mind reeled. Why would you know that? Victoria reached into a slim briefcase beside her and pulled out a folder. She opened it, revealing what appeared to be personnel files. "Daniel James Brooks," she read. 32 years old, bachelor's degree in architecture from UC Berkeley, graduated summa cum laude. Unemployed for 6 months after graduation due to the recession. Took temporary work as a janitor to support your wife and newborn daughter. Marriage ended in divorce 1 year ago. Single father to Emma Brooks, age 6. No criminal record, no debts beyond standard living expenses. By all accounts, an exemplary employee and dedicated father. "You've been investigating me?" Daniel's voice came out sharper than he intended. "Observing," Victoria corrected. "There's a difference."
Why? Because 3 years ago you did something that caught my attention. Daniel searched his memory, coming up empty. It was late, Victoria continued, around 2 a.m. I'd been working in my office. I often work late, and I'd left some architectural plans spread out on my conference table. Preliminary designs for our Bayside Towers project, highly confidential, worth millions if leaked to our competitors. Daniel remembered. How could he forget? "I saw them when I came in to clean," he said slowly. "The door was open. The lights were on. And what did you do?" "I didn't touch them. I cleaned around the table, emptied the trash, and left a note on your desk saying the conference room hadn't been cleaned because of the materials left out. I suggested you call when they were cleared so we could finish the job." "Exactly." Victoria leaned forward. "Do you know what most people would have done? They would have taken pictures with their phone.
They would have sold those plans to our competitors for enough money to change their lives. But you didn't. You respected the privacy of documents that meant nothing to you personally, but everything to my company. I'm not a thief. No, you're not. And that moment told me more about your character than any background check could. Victoria closed the folder. I started paying attention after that. I noticed how you always arrived 15 minutes early for your shift, how you stayed late if a job wasn't finished perfectly, how you never cut corners, never did less than your best, even though you were cleaning office buildings in the middle of the night for minimum wage. Daniel didn't know what to say. The idea that someone, especially someone like Victoria Ashford, had been watching him, noting his actions, felt surreal. I also noticed the picture, Victoria continued. The one you keep in your locker. You and your daughter at the park. She's holding an ice cream cone and you're both laughing. You look at that picture every night before your shift starts. I've seen you. Something in Daniel's chest cracked. The thought of someone witnessing those small, private moments, the moments when he reminded himself why he pushed through 18-hour days, felt both invasive and strangely comforting. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because 45 minutes ago, I watched you walk into Patterson and Associates. I know Richard Whitmore. I know the kind of law he practices. And when you walked out looking like someone had driven a knife between your ribs, I knew exactly what had happened in that office. You were watching the building? My driver was parked outside. I had a late dinner meeting in the area. Call it coincidence or fate, but I saw you go in and I saw you come out. And I decided it was time to stop observing and start acting. Daniel shook his head, water from his hair dripping onto the leather seat. I don't understand. Why do you care what happens to some janitor? Because you're not some janitor, Daniel. Victoria's voice was firm. You're an architect who is beaten down by circumstances. You're a father who works 60-hour weeks to provide for his child. You're a man who maintains his integrity even when no one's watching. And I've built my company on the principle that talent and character matter more than circumstance. What does that have to do with... Your ex-wife is trying to extort $50,000 from you by threatening to take your daughter. Am I correct? Daniel's silence was answer enough. I thought so. Lauren Hale. I had my assistant pull her background during the drive over. She's engaged to Marcus Redding, a mid-level investment banker with more debt than sense. They're living beyond their means in a house they can barely afford. My guess? They need cash and decided you were an easy mark. How did you... I didn't become CEO of a billion-dollar company by being slow with information, Daniel. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't have $50,000. I know, but I do. Daniel's heart stopped. I can't accept. I'm not offering you charity. Victoria's tone was businesslike now. I'm offering you a job. A job? I need an architect, someone with fresh eyes and genuine passion for design, someone who understands that buildings aren't just structures, they're homes, workplaces, communities, someone who won't cut corners or compromise integrity for profit. She paused. Sound like anyone you know? Daniel felt dizzy. You're offering me a job as an architect? At Ashford Industries? Junior architect to start. Salary of $75,000 a year with full benefits and a signing bonus of $50,000. The bonus comes with one condition. You use it to fight for your daughter. Not to pay off your ex-wife, but to hire the best family law attorney in the state and bury her extortion attempt in court. This isn't real. Things like this don't happen. They do when you spend 3 years proving you're worth the investment. Victoria extended her hand. I believe in you, Daniel. I've watched you treat a janitor's job with the same dedication most people reserve for their dreams. I can only imagine what you'll accomplish when you're actually doing what you were trained for. So what do you say? Are you ready to stop surviving and start building again? Daniel stared at her outstretched hand. His mind was racing, trying to find the catch, the angle, the trap. But all he could see was Emma's face, her gap-toothed smile, her absolute faith that Daddy could fix anything. Maybe she'd been right all along. He reached out and shook Victoria's hand. Yes, he said, his voice stronger than it had been in years. Yes, I am. Victoria's smile was genuine now, transforming her entire face. Excellent. My attorney will contact you tomorrow morning with the employment contract and the name of the family lawyer I want you to work with. Her name is Sarah Chen. She's a pit bull in the courtroom, and she doesn't lose custody cases. She'll make Lauren regret ever threatening you. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by being the architect I know you can be, and by being the father your daughter deserves. Victoria glanced out the window at the rain. Where can I have my driver take you? I live in the Mission District, but I have my car with the broken taillight and the passenger window that doesn't roll down. Leave it. My driver will take you home and have someone collect your car tomorrow. Consider it part of the job benefits. Daniel wanted to argue, but he was too overwhelmed. Instead, he gave the driver his address and settled back into the seat, his wet clothes probably ruining the expensive leather. As the limo pulled away from the curb, Daniel looked back at the glass tower where Lauren still stood in her victory. She had no idea that the man she'd dismissed as just a janitor had just been handed the ammunition to destroy her. Victoria pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. I'm sending Sarah Chen your contact information now. Expect her call at 8 a.m. sharp. She'll want to meet with you immediately to begin building your case. What do I tell Emma? Tell her that sometimes when things seem darkest, that's when the light is about to break through. Tell her that good people who work hard and stay true to themselves don't go unrewarded forever. Victoria looked up from her phone. Tell her that her father is a fighter and that they're going to win. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in over a year. Hope. The limo glided through the rain-slicked streets, leaving the financial district behind. Daniel watched the city pass by through windows so clean they were nearly invisible, a strange metaphor for how quickly his life had transformed. An hour ago, he'd been broken, defeated, certain he was about to lose everything that mattered. Now he had a weapon. More than that, he had an ally. Why me? Daniel asked quietly. Really? There must be hundreds of qualified architects looking for work. Why take a chance on someone who's been out of the field for 5 years? Victoria was quiet for a moment, her gaze fixed on something beyond the window. My father built Ashford Industries from nothing, she finally said. He started as a construction worker, laying foundations in the brutal summer heat. Everyone told him he'd never amount to anything. Too poor, too uneducated, wrong side of the tracks. But he had integrity. When other workers cut corners, he didn't. When supervisors looked the other way at unsafe conditions, he spoke up. When he finally saved enough to start his own company, he built it on the principle that quality and character matter more than quick profits. She turned to face Daniel. He died 10 years ago, but before he did, he made me promise something. He said, Victoria, when you find someone who does the right thing when no one's watching, when you find someone who treats every job with dignity, no matter how small, you hold on to them, because those people are rarer than gold and more valuable than profit. You're one of those people, Daniel. I've been looking for you for 3 years. I'm not about to let Lauren Hale destroy someone my father would have been proud to know. Daniel's throat was tight. He sounds like he was a good man. The best. And he would have liked you. Victoria smiled. He always said you could tell a person's true character by how they treat people who can do nothing for them. You've been kind to the other janitors, patient with the security guards, respectful to everyone you encounter. That tells me who you really are. The limo turned onto Daniel's Street, a far cry from the gleaming towers of the financial district. Here, the buildings were old, the paint peeling, the sidewalks cracked. Streetlights flickered. A grocery cart lay abandoned on its side. But it was home. This is it, Daniel said as they pulled up to his building. Victoria looked at the structure, 5 stories of faded brick with fire escapes zigzagging down the front like scars. Tomorrow you'll start looking for a new place, somewhere with a proper bedroom for Emma. The signing bonus should cover first and last month's rent, with enough left over for the legal fees. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it. And Daniel? Victoria's voice stopped him as he reached for the door handle. When you see Lauren in court, don't gloat. Don't be cruel. Just be honest. Tell the truth about who you are and what you've sacrificed for your daughter. The truth is the most powerful weapon you have. Daniel nodded, then stepped out into the rain. He watched the limousine pull away. its red taillights disappearing into the night like a dream evaporating at dawn. For a moment, he wondered if it had all been real. If he'd wake up tomorrow and find himself still broke, still alone, still facing an impossible battle. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Sarah Chen. Victoria Ashford contacted me regarding your custody case. I've cleared my morning calendar, 8 a.m. tomorrow at my office. Address below. Bring any documentation related to your daughter's custody arrangement and your ex-wife's extortion attempt. We're going to win this. SC." Daniel read the message 3 times, then started to laugh. It was real. All of it was real. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his wet clothes forgotten. Mrs. Rodriguez, his neighbor who watched Emma during his night shifts, opened her door as he approached his apartment. "Mijo, you're soaking wet. And you're early. Your shift doesn't end for hours." "Emergency came up," Daniel said, grinning like a madman. "Is Emma asleep?" "Out like a light. Had her dinner, did her homework, watched half an hour of cartoons, and went right to bed. That girl's an angel." "Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. I don't know what I'd do without you." The elderly woman smiled, her weathered face crinkling with warmth. "You're a good father, Daniel. Emma is lucky to have you." If she only knew how close he'd come to losing that chance. Daniel slipped into his apartment quietly. It was small, one room that served as bedroom, living room, and office, with a tiny kitchen in the corner and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Emma slept on a pull-out couch that Daniel converted every night after she went to bed so he could sleep on the floor in a sleeping bag. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. He crossed to where Emma slept, her small form barely making a bump under the blankets. Her favorite stuffed rabbit, a threadbare thing she'd had since she was 2, was clutched in her arms. In the dim light from the street, she looked impossibly small, impossibly precious. Daniel knelt beside the couch and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered. "Daddy's home early tonight." Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby, it's me." "Did you fight the trash monsters?" It was their game. The trash he emptied every night became monsters in Emma's imagination, and Daddy was the hero who defeated them. "I fought something scarier than trash monsters tonight," Daniel said softly. "But I won." "You always win, Daddy. You're the strongest." Daniel's eyes burned. He wasn't strong. He was exhausted, terrified, barely holding on. But to Emma, he was invincible. Maybe it was time to start believing her. "Go back to sleep, sweetheart. Tomorrow's a big day." "Why?" "Because tomorrow, everything changes." Emma yawned, already drifting off again. "Okay, Daddy. Love you." "I love you too, baby. More than anything in the world." He stayed there for a long time, watching her sleep, letting the reality of what had happened tonight sink in. Lauren had tried to break him. She'd used his poverty, his circumstances, his love for his daughter as weapons. She'd been so certain she would win. She had no idea what was coming. Daniel pulled out his phone and looked at Sarah Chen's message again. 8 a.m. He'd need to call in sick to his shift tomorrow, his last shift as a janitor. By this time next week, he'd be working as an architect again. He'd have health insurance, a retirement plan, enough money to buy Emma the bicycle she'd been wanting for her birthday, and he'd have the resources to fight Lauren in court and win. He opened his notes app and began typing everything he could remember about tonight's meeting. Every threat Lauren had made, every word Whitmore had said. Sarah Chen would want details, and Daniel was going to give her ammunition. Outside, the rain had stopped. Through the single window of their apartment, Daniel could see the clouds beginning to break, revealing stars that had been hidden for days. Tomorrow, he would walk into Sarah Chen's office not as a victim, but as a man with the means to fight back. He would face Lauren not with desperation, but with confidence. He would stand before a judge not as a broke janitor, but as a father who had earned the right to raise his daughter. And he would win. Because sometimes, when you least expect it, when you're standing in the rain convinced you've lost everything, someone sees you, really sees you, and they remind you that integrity has value, that hard work matters, that good people don't go unrewarded forever. Daniel Brooks had spent 3 years invisible, overlooked, dismissed as just a janitor. But Victoria Ashford had seen what others missed. She'd seen a man who did the right thing when no one was watching, a father who sacrificed everything for his child. An architect who treated every task with dignity, no matter how small. And she decided that man was worth investing in. As Daniel finally changed out of his wet clothes and set his alarm for 6 a.m., he'd need time to prepare before meeting Sarah Chen, he felt something shift inside him. The weight that had been crushing his chest for the past year, the constant anxiety about money and custody in the future, began to lift. He wasn't drowning anymore. He was building. And tomorrow, he would start building the life Emma deserved, the life they both deserved. Lauren had made a mistake tonight. She'd assumed that poverty equaled powerlessness, that a janitor couldn't fight back, that threatening a man's child was a winning strategy. She was about to learn otherwise. Daniel lay down on his sleeping bag, exhausted but energized, terrified but hopeful. His phone glowed softly in the darkness, Sarah Chen's message still visible on the screen. "We're going to win this." He believed it. For the first time in a long time, Daniel Brooks believed he could actually win. Daniel's alarm went off at 6 a.m., but he'd been awake for over an hour, his mind racing through everything that needed to happen today. He moved quietly through the tiny apartment, trying not to wake Emma as he showered and dressed in the only suit he owned, a charcoal gray number he'd bought for job interviews 5 years ago. It was slightly loose now. He'd lost weight working nights and skipping meals, but it was clean, pressed, and would have to do. Emma was stirring when he emerged from the bathroom, her small face scrunched in confusion at seeing him dressed up so early. "Daddy, why are you wearing your fancy clothes?" Daniel sat on the edge of the pull-out couch, reaching over to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "I have an important meeting this morning, sweetheart. Remember how I told you everything was going to change?" "Uh-huh." "Well, it's starting today. Mrs. Rodriguez is going to take you to school like always, and I'll pick you up this afternoon. But after today, Daddy's going to have a different job, a better job." Emma's eyes widened. "You're not going to fight the trash monsters anymore?" "Not anymore. I'm going to build things instead. Big buildings where people can live and work." "Like the tall buildings downtown?" "Exactly like that." Emma threw her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. "I'm so proud of you, Daddy." Daniel held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling his chest constrict with love so fierce it almost hurt. This was what he was fighting for. This moment. This child. This future. "I'm proud of you too, baby. Now let's get you some breakfast before school." They moved through their morning routine, cereal and orange juice, getting dressed, packing her backpack. Normal, ordinary moments that felt suddenly precious because Daniel knew how close he'd come to losing them. When Mrs. Rodriguez knocked at 7:30, Daniel hugged Emma extra tight. "Have a good day at school. I love you." "Love you too, Daddy. Good luck at your meeting." The door closed behind them, and Daniel was alone with his thoughts and the address Sarah Chen had sent him. Her office was in the Marina District, another world away from Daniel's neighborhood. He took the bus, unwilling to trust his dying car for something this important, and watched the city transform around him as they moved from working-class streets to tree-lined avenues with cafes and boutiques. The people waiting at stops changed too. Fewer uniforms, more suits, and designer bags. Sarah Chen's office occupied the third floor of a converted Victorian, the kind of place that radiated quiet competence and serious money. Daniel climbed the stairs, his heart pounding harder with each step. The reception area was all dark wood and leather chairs, with framed legal certifications covering one wall like trophies. The receptionist looked up as he entered, her professional smile warming when she saw him. "You must be Daniel Brooks. Miss Chen is expecting you. Can I get you coffee or water?" "Water would be great, thank you." "Right through that door. She's ready for you." Daniel had expected someone older, severe, maybe wearing glasses and a permanent scowl. Sarah Chen was none of those things. She couldn't have been more than 40, with shoulder-length black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that assessed him in the 3 seconds it took to cross her office. She stood and extended her hand across a desk covered in neat stacks of files. "Mr. Brooks? I'm Sarah Chen. Please, sit." Her handshake was firm, confident. Daniel sat in one of the chairs facing her desk, accepting the water bottle the receptionist handed him. "Victoria speaks very highly of you," Sarah began, settling back into her chair. "In the 15 years I've known her, I've never seen her personally intervene in someone's custody case. You must have made quite an impression." I'm still trying to process all of it, Daniel admitted. 24 hours ago, I thought I was going to lose my daughter. Now I'm sitting in a lawyer's office being told I can fight back. You can more than fight back. You can win. Sarah pulled a legal pad toward her. But I need complete honesty from you. I need to know everything. The good, the bad, everything your ex-wife might use against you in court. Can you do that? Daniel nodded. Yes. Good. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me about your marriage to Lauren Hale. For the next hour, Daniel laid it all out. How they'd met in college, young and optimistic and convinced love could conquer anything. How she'd supported him through his final year while working as a receptionist at a dental office. How they'd gotten married right after graduation, both of them certain his architecture degree would lead to immediate success. Then the recession hit. The firm that had promised him a position went bankrupt. 6 months of applications led nowhere. Lauren got pregnant, and suddenly they needed money fast. The janitor job was supposed to be temporary, just until something better came along. But nothing better came along, Daniel said quietly. The economy recovered, but by then I had a gap in my resume. Firms wanted recent graduates or experienced architects. I was neither, and Lauren started to resent me. When did the marriage fall apart? About a year after Emma was born. Lauren said she couldn't handle being married to someone with no ambition. She wanted the life she'd imagined, nice house, vacations, private schools for Emma. I was working 60 hours a week scrubbing floors and we could barely afford rent. She had an affair with a colleague at her office. I found out, confronted her, and she said she wanted a divorce. Sarah wrote notes on her pad, her expression neutral. And the custody arrangement? She said she couldn't be a mother right then, that she needed to focus on rebuilding her life. I was shocked. I thought she'd fight for Emma. But her lawyer drew up papers giving me full physical custody with Lauren having visitation rights every other weekend. She barely exercised those rights. Sometimes she'd cancel last minute and Emma would be devastated. How often did she cancel? Maybe half the time? She always had excuses, work commitments, trips with Marcus. Emma stopped asking when Mommy was coming. That's good, Sarah said, still writing. Shows a pattern of disinterest. Now tell me about last night. Everything that was said. Daniel recounted the meeting in excruciating detail. Lauren's designer clothes and cold eyes, Whitmore's smooth threats, the demand for $50,000. Sarah's pen moved rapidly across the page, occasionally stopping as she asked clarifying questions. Did they actually use the word extortion or blackmail? No, they called it a settlement offer. But the implication was clear, pay or lose Emma. And you have no recording of this conversation? No, I didn't think to. It's fine, your testimony will be enough, especially once we add everything else to the record. Sarah set down her pen and looked at him directly. Here's what's going to happen. Lauren's attorney is expecting you to either pay the $50,000 or roll over and let her file for custody unopposed. Instead, we're going to file a motion to modify custody first, specifically to request full legal custody in addition to the physical custody you already have, and to limit her visitation based on her pattern of neglect and her extortionate behavior. Daniel's eyes widened. We're going on offense? Always. The best defense is a strong offense. We're going to force her to defend her actions in court rather than letting her attack you. We'll document every canceled visit, every missed birthday, every time she chose her new life over her daughter. And we're going to expose her extortion attempt for exactly what it is, a desperate grab for cash using a child as leverage. Won't that make her fight harder? Probably, but here's the thing. Lauren has made a critical mistake. She assumed the fight would be about money, about who has the nicer house and better resources. We're going to make it about something else entirely. Who has actually been a parent to Emma for the past year? Sarah pulled out another file, this one thicker. I need you to document everything. Every morning you've made Emma breakfast, every time you've picked her up from school, every parent-teacher conference, every doctor's appointment, every bedtime story. I want receipts, photos, emails from teachers, testimony from your neighbor who watches Emma during your work hours. We're going to build an ironclad record that you have been the consistent, stable parent in Emma's life. I can do that. Good. I'll also need character references. People who can testify to your parenting and your integrity. Your neighbor, Emma's teachers, maybe your supervisor at work. Actually, Daniel said, feeling surreal even as he spoke the words, as of today, my supervisor is Victoria Ashford. I start as a junior architect at Ashford Industries next week. Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly. Victoria works fast. That's excellent. A stable, well-paying job completely undermines Lauren's argument that you can't provide for Emma. What's your new salary? $75,000 plus benefits and a signing bonus. Perfect. We'll present that as evidence of your career prospects and financial stability. Lauren's argument was that you're just a janitor. Well, now you're an architect with a major firm. Game over on that front. Daniel felt something loosening in his chest, the first real breath he'd taken in days. Do you really think we can win this? Sarah leaned forward, her gaze intense. Daniel, I've been practicing family law for 18 years. I've seen hundreds of custody cases. The ones I lose are the ones where the parent genuinely isn't fit or where there's abuse involved. This is neither. This is a mother who abandoned her child for a year, barely maintained contact, and is now trying to extort money from the father who actually did the work of parenting. Unless you're hiding something catastrophic from me, criminal history, substance abuse, something genuinely disqualifying, we're going to win this case. The only question is how badly we embarrass Lauren in the process. I have nothing to hide. I've spent the last year being the best father I know how to be. Then we're going to prove that in court. I'm filing our motion today. Lauren and her attorney will be served by end of business tomorrow. They're going to realize very quickly that they miscalculated. And Daniel? Sarah's expression softened slightly. When this is over, Emma is going to know that her father fought for her, not with money, but with truth and love. That's a gift that will last her entire life. Daniel's throat was tight. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you for this. Do good work for Victoria. Be a good father to Emma. That's payment enough. Now I need you to go home and start documenting. I want a timeline of every significant interaction you've had with Emma since the divorce. Every visit Lauren canceled, every milestone she missed. Can you do that? Yes. Good. I'll call you tomorrow after Lauren's been served. Things are going to move quickly from there. Daniel stood, shaking Sarah's hand again. As he turned to leave, she called after him. Mr. Brooks? One more thing. When we go to court, I need you to stay calm. Lauren's attorney is going to try to provoke you, to make you look angry or unstable. Don't give them that satisfaction. You tell your truth clearly and calmly. You let the facts speak for themselves. Can you do that? Daniel thought about last night, standing in the rain, feeling defeated. Then he thought about Victoria's words in the limousine, about integrity and character mattering more than money. I can do that. Good. I'll be in touch. The receptionist smiled at him on his way out. Good luck, Mr. Brooks. Thank you. He took the stairs down slowly, processing everything Sarah had said. File first, go on offense, expose the truth. It was such a different approach than he'd imagined, so much bolder, but it felt right. His phone buzzed as he reached the street, a text from a number he didn't recognize. Daniel, this is James Hartwell from Ashford Industries HR. Victoria asked me to reach out. Can you come by the office today at 2 p.m. to handle your onboarding paperwork? We'd like to get you started as soon as possible. Reply to confirm. Daniel stared at the message, reality hitting him again. This was happening. All of it was real. He typed back, I'll be there. Thank you. Another buzz, this time from Victoria herself. Sarah is excellent. Trust her process. How are you holding up? Daniel appreciated the question more than she could know. Better than I expected. Thank you for everything. You earned it. See you at 2. Daniel checked the time. 11:30. He had 2.5 hours before the meeting at Ashford Industries. Enough time to go home, change, and start the documentation Sarah had requested. The bus ride back to the Mission District felt different this time. The streets didn't look quite so bleak, the buildings not quite so run down. Or maybe they were exactly the same, and Daniel was just seeing them through different eyes, the eyes of someone who had hope again. Mrs. Rodriguez was sweeping the hallway when he arrived home, her weathered face breaking into a smile when she saw him. Mijo, how did your meeting go? Better than I could have imagined. Mrs. Rodriguez, I need to ask you something. Would you be willing to testify in court about what kind of father I am, about how I take care of Emma? The elderly woman's expression turned fierce. I would testify to the Pope himself if it meant helping you keep that child. You are the best father I have ever seen, Daniel. You work yourself to the bone for that little girl. Anyone who says different is a liar. Thank you. My lawyer is going to contact you. Just tell her the truth about what you've observed. The truth is easy. You love that child more than life itself. She paused, studying his face. Something good happened, didn't it? You look different. A lot of good things happened. I got a new job, a real job in architecture, and I have a lawyer who's going to help me fight for Emma. Mrs. Rodriguez crossed herself. Gracias a Dios. I have been praying for you, mijo. I told the Virgin that good men should not suffer, that you deserved a miracle. Daniel hugged her, this woman who had been more of a mother to him than his own mother-in-law had ever been. Thank you for everything, for watching Emma, for believing in me. Go, she said, pushing him gently toward his apartment. Do what you need to do. And Daniel, hold your head high. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Inside his apartment, Daniel changed out of his suit and into jeans and a clean shirt, then sat down at the small table that served as both dining area and desk. He opened his laptop, a 5-year-old model that took forever to boot up, and created a new document. Timeline: Daniel and Emma Brooks. He started from the day Lauren had left, typing slowly at first, then faster, as the memories flooded back. The morning he'd woken up to find her gone, just a note on the counter saying she needed space. The weeks that followed, trying to explain to a 5-year-old why mommy wasn't coming home. The first time Emma had cried herself to sleep asking if mommy didn't love her anymore. Then the scheduled visits that Lauren had canceled. Daniel pulled up his email, searching for the messages. There were dozens of them. Sorry, something came up at work. Can we reschedule? Marcus surprised me with a trip to Napa. I'll see Emma next time. I'm not feeling well. Better if I don't expose her. Each cancellation, another disappointment for Emma. Another night, Daniel had held her while she asked why mommy didn't want to see her. He documented it all. The parent-teacher conferences Lauren had missed, all of them. The school plays where Emma had looked hopefully into the audience for her mother, only to find just Daniel clapping and cheering. The emergency room visit when Emma had fallen and needed stitches, and Daniel had been the one holding her hand while Lauren hadn't even answered his calls. By the time he finished, it was 1:30, and the document was 8 pages long. 8 pages of evidence that he had been the parent who showed up, who stayed, who loved Emma through every moment of every day. Daniel saved the file and emailed it to Sarah Chen, then grabbed his suit jacket. Time for the next step in his transformation. Ashford Industries occupied floors 18 through 20 of the Sterling Tower, one of the most prestigious addresses in the financial district. Daniel had cleaned these offices for 3 years, always arriving after hours when the halls were empty and quiet. Now he was walking through the main lobby at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, past the marble reception desk and the wall of glass that overlooked the bay. The receptionist smiled at him. You must be Daniel Brooks. Take the elevator to 18. James Hartwell is expecting you. The elevator was the same one Daniel had used to transport his cleaning cart, but it felt completely different riding it in a suit, heading up instead of down. The doors opened on the 18th floor, revealing a space he'd only ever seen empty and dark. Now it was alive with activity, people moving between offices, phones ringing, the hum of productive energy. A man in his 50s approached, hand extended. Daniel, James Hartwell, VP of Human Resources. Welcome to Ashford Industries. Thank you for seeing me. Are you kidding? Victoria's been talking about bringing you on board for months. She's very pleased this all finally came together. James gestured toward a conference room. Let's get your paperwork handled, and then I'll give you the tour. The next hour was a blur of forms and documents. Employment contract, benefits enrollment, tax withholdings, direct deposit authorization. James walked him through each one patiently, explaining the generous health insurance, the 401k matching, the vacation policy. You'll start at $75,000 annually, James said, reviewing the contract, with performance reviews every 6 months and potential for advancement. Victoria has high hopes for you in our residential design division. We're expanding into sustainable housing projects, and she thinks your perspective will be valuable. Daniel's hand trembled slightly as he signed the contract. 75,000. He'd been making 28. This single signature was going to change everything, not just for him, but for Emma. The signing bonus will be processed tomorrow, James continued. 50,000 minus taxes. Should hit your account by Friday. That fast? Victoria requested expedited processing. She said you had some urgent expenses. Daniel nodded, thinking of Sarah Chen in the court case that was about to begin. I do. Thank you. Now, let's talk about your start date. Normally, we'd have you begin next Monday, but Victoria suggested you might need a few days to handle some personal matters. Would the following Monday work better? That would be perfect. I need to give notice at my current job and handle some legal issues. Understood. And Daniel? James's expression was kind. I've worked with Victoria for 20 years. She doesn't make decisions like this lightly. She sees something special in you. Don't let her down. I won't. I promise. After the paperwork was complete, James gave him the tour. The residential design division occupied half of the 19th floor, a bright space filled with drafting tables, computer stations running CAD software, and a conference room with walls covered in architectural renderings. 3 other architects worked in the space, all of them looking up curiously as James introduced Daniel. Everyone, this is Daniel Brooks. He'll be joining us as a junior architect starting next week. Daniel graduated summa cum laude from Berkeley's architecture program and brings a unique perspective to our team. A woman in her 40s with red hair and warm eyes stood up. Rachel Morrison, senior residential architect. Berkeley, huh? Go Bears. Daniel smiled. Go Bears. You'll be working primarily with Rachel, James said. She heads up our affordable housing initiative. Affordable housing? Daniel repeated. Rachel nodded. Victoria's passion project. We're designing mixed-income communities that actually work. Quality construction, sustainable design, integrated services. The goal is to prove that affordable doesn't have to mean cheap or ugly. I hear you have some personal experience with the subject. Daniel thought about his one-room apartment, the broken elevator, the water pressure that barely worked. You could say that. Good. We need someone who understands what it's actually like to live in the spaces we're designing. Too many architects create housing for people they've never met, and circumstances they've never experienced. Your perspective is going to be invaluable. The tour continued through the office, ending at a workspace near a window with a view of the bay. A desk, a computer, a drafting table, all waiting for him. This will be yours, James said. We'll have your nameplate ready by Monday. Daniel stared at the empty desk, imagining himself sitting there, actually doing the work he'd trained for, using his degree for something more than a dusty piece of paper in a drawer. It felt surreal, like trying on someone else's life. Thank you, he managed, for all of this. Thank Victoria. She's the one who made it happen. James checked his watch. She should be finishing a meeting shortly. She wanted to see you before you left. They made their way to Victoria's office on the 20th floor, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that probably cost more than Daniel's car. Victoria was on the phone when they arrived, but she waved them in, gesturing for Daniel to sit. I understand the timeline concerns, but quality takes time, she was saying into the phone. I'd rather deliver 3 months late than deliver something we'll be ashamed of in 5 years. That's final. Thank you. She hung up and smiled at Daniel. How did onboarding go? Overwhelming in the best possible way. Good. James, thank you. I'll take it from here. James excused himself, leaving Daniel alone with the woman who had transformed his life in less than 24 hours. Sarah called me, Victoria said. She's impressed with you, said you were honest and thorough and willing to do the work necessary to win your case. She's filing today, going on offense, she called it. Sarah doesn't do anything halfway. By this time tomorrow, Lauren is going to realize she made a very serious mistake. Victoria opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I have something for you. Consider it part of your benefits package. She slid the folder across the desk. Inside was information for a 2-bedroom apartment in the Sunset District. Good schools, safe neighborhood, rent that would have been impossible on his janitor's salary, but was manageable now. The building manager is a friend, Victoria said. I called her this morning. The apartment's available immediately if you want it. First month is on the company as a relocation bonus. Daniel looked at the photos. A real bedroom for Emma, a kitchen with actual counter space, windows that let in light, a place they could build a life. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take it. Say you'll show up Monday ready to work. Say you'll be the architect I know you can be. Victoria's expression was serious now. Daniel, I meant what I said last night. You've proven your character over 3 years. Now I'm giving you the opportunity to prove your talent. Don't waste it. I won't. Good. Now go home to your daughter. Spend the evening with her. Tomorrow is going to be intense once Lauren gets served. Enjoy the calm before the storm. Daniel stood, clutching the folder with the apartment information. Victoria, don't thank me again. Just live up to the faith I have in you. That's all the thanks I need. As Daniel rode the elevator back down, he caught his reflection in the polished doors. The man looking back at him stood straighter, met his own eyes with something that looked like confidence. 24 hours ago, he'd been broken, certain he was about to lose everything. Now he had a job, a lawyer, a future. And tomorrow, Lauren was going to find out that the man she'd dismissed as powerless had just become very dangerous indeed. He picked Emma up from school at 3:30, same as always, but everything felt different. She bounded out of the building, her backpack bouncing against her small frame, and threw herself into his arms. Daddy, guess what? I got a gold star on my math test. That's my brilliant girl. I'm so proud of you. They walked home hand in hand, Emma chattering about her day, and Daniel listened with an attention that felt almost sacred. These moments, these simple, ordinary moments, were what he'd been fighting for, what he would keep fighting for until his last breath. Daddy, you're smiling a lot today. Did something good happen? Daniel looked down at his daughter, this small person who was his entire world, and decided she deserved to know the truth. Something very good happened, sweetheart. Remember how I told you everything was changing? Well, Daddy got a new job doing what he always wanted to do, and we're going to move to a new apartment where you'll have your own room. Emma's eyes went wide. My own room? With a door and everything? With a door and everything, and windows, and enough space for all your toys. When? Soon. Very soon. He knelt down to her level on the sidewalk. But Emma, I need to talk to you about something serious. Mommy might try to see you more often. She might say things about wanting you to come live with her. But I want you to know that no matter what happens, Daddy is always going to fight to keep you safe and happy. Okay? Emma wrapped her arms around his neck. I don't want to live with Mommy. I want to stay with you. Daniel held her tight, feeling tears prick his eyes. I'm going to make sure you can, baby. I promise. That night, after dinner and homework and bath time, Daniel tucked Emma into the pull-out couch and read her 3 chapters of her favorite book. When she finally fell asleep, he sat at his laptop and continued documenting, building the case that would prove he was the parent Emma needed. His phone buzzed around 9 p.m. A message from Sarah Chen. Motion filed. Lauren will be served tomorrow at her place of employment. Brace yourself for her reaction. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Let her react. Let her rage and threaten. This time he wasn't standing in the rain powerless and alone. This time he had weapons of his own. Lauren's call came at 11:15 the next morning, while Daniel was finishing his 2-week notice with the cleaning company supervisor. His phone vibrated so violently it nearly fell off the desk, her name flashing on the screen like a warning siren. He'd been expecting this. Sarah had texted earlier to confirm the process server had successfully delivered the custody modification motion at Lauren's office. But the reality of it still sent his pulse racing. He let it ring 4 times before answering, taking a breath to steady himself. Sarah's words echoed in his mind. Stay calm. Don't let her provoke you. Let the facts speak for themselves. Hello, Lauren. What the hell do you think you're doing? Her voice was a shriek, all pretense of civility abandoned. In the background, Daniel could hear traffic noise. She must have stepped outside her office building to make this call. You filed for full custody? You're trying to take away my visitation rights? I'm protecting my daughter from being used as a bargaining chip. Protecting her? You're the one who needs protecting, Daniel. You're a janitor living in a slum. I'm an architect, Daniel interrupted quietly. I started Ashford Industries on Monday. $75,000 a year plus benefits. The silence on the other end was so complete he thought the call had dropped. "What?" Lauren finally said, her voice strangled. "I have a new job. A career, actually. The kind you always said I should have gotten 5 years ago. Turns out someone saw potential in me that you never did." "You're lying." "The employment contract is part of my court filing. You'll see it when your lawyer reviews the documents, along with a detailed timeline of every visit you've canceled, every milestone you've missed, every time you chose your new life over your daughter." "You bastard. You absolute. How dare you?" "How dare I what? Tell the truth? Document your behavior? Fight for my child?" Lauren's breathing was ragged now, fury making her voice shake. "Marcus has money, real money. We'll bury you in legal fees. We'll drag this out until you can't afford to fight anymore. Actually, my lawyer is one of the best family law attorneys in the state, and she works pro bono for cases she believes in. Which means your money doesn't scare me, Lauren. Your threats don't scare me. Nothing you can do scares me anymore because I finally have something you never gave me. Someone who believes I'm worth investing in." "Who?" The question came out sharp, desperate. "Who's helping you?" "Does it matter? The point is, you made a miscalculation. You thought because I was poor, I was powerless. You thought you could threaten to take Emma and I'd just roll over and pay you, but I'm not that person anymore. This is insane. I'm her mother. No judge is going to... You were her mother when you walked away. You were her mother when you canceled half your scheduled visits. You were her mother when she cried herself to sleep, asking why you didn't love her anymore." Daniel's voice remained steady, but each word landed like a hammer blow. "What you are now is someone trying to extort money from your ex-husband using your child as leverage. And yeah, I think a judge is going to have some thoughts about that. I'll see you in court, Daniel, and when I'm done with you, looking forward to it." He hung up before she could respond, his hand trembling slightly as he set the phone down. His supervisor, a kind man named Miguel, who'd always treated Daniel with respect, was watching him with raised eyebrows. "Everything okay, Daniel?" "Yeah, just my ex-wife finding out that threatening me was a mistake." Miguel grinned. "Good for you, man. And congratulations on the new job. We're going to miss you here, but I'm glad you're getting back to what you studied for. You were always too smart to be pushing a mop. The work was honest. I'm grateful I had it when I needed it. That's why you were good at it. Most people treat this job like it's beneath them. You treated it like it mattered." Miguel handed him a final paycheck. "This is for this week plus your unused vacation days. Not much, but every bit helps, right?" Daniel looked at the check, $412. Once upon a time, that would have felt like a fortune. Now it was just a reminder of how far he'd come in 48 hours. "Thank you, Miguel, for everything. You ever need a reference, you call me. I'll tell anyone who asks that you're one of the best employees I ever had." They shook hands, and Daniel walked out of the cleaning company office for the last time. The morning sun was bright, the sky clear after days of rain. Symbolic, maybe. Or maybe he was just in the mood to see signs everywhere. His phone rang again, Sarah Chen this time. "I assume you heard from Lauren," Sarah said without preamble. "She called screaming threats about 10 minutes ago." "Good. That means she's rattled. Rattled people make mistakes." Papers rustled in the background. "Her attorney just called my office requesting an emergency meeting. He wants to negotiate." "Already?" "They know they're in trouble. The custody modification motion lays out a clear pattern of neglect and the extortion attempt. Plus, your new employment situation completely undermines their argument that you can't provide for Emma. Whitmore's smart enough to recognize a losing position when he sees one." "What do we do?" "We meet with them. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at a neutral location. But Daniel, listen to me carefully. This is a trap. They're going to try to intimidate you, to make you second-guess yourself. They'll paint Lauren as a reformed mother who made mistakes but wants to do better. They'll minimize the extortion as a misunderstanding. Don't fall for it." "I won't. I need you there in person. I want them to see who they're dealing with. Not some broken-down janitor they can push around, but a professional who's gotten his life together and won't be bullied. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Where?" Sarah gave him the address of a mediation center downtown. "Wear the suit. Look them in the eye. Let them see they've lost." After hanging up, Daniel drove to the Sunset District apartment Victoria had arranged. The building manager, a woman named Patricia with gray hair and a warm smile, was waiting for him with keys. Victoria called ahead, Patricia said as she led him up to the second floor. She speaks very highly of you. She's been incredibly generous. She's a good judge of character. If she vouches for you, that's good enough for me. Patricia unlocked apartment 2C and pushed the door open. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, updated kitchen. Rent includes water and garbage, laundry in the basement. Daniel stepped inside and felt something in his chest expand. Sunlight poured through windows that actually opened. The living room was twice the size of his entire current apartment. The kitchen had a full-size refrigerator and a stove with all 4 burners working. And down a short hallway, 2 bedrooms. One for him, one for Emma. The previous tenant kept it clean, Patricia said. You can move in any time. First month's rent is covered, and after that it's $1,800 a month. Sound fair? $1,800. That would have been impossible before. Now, with his new salary, it was manageable. More than manageable. It's perfect. Thank you. Welcome home, Mr. Brooks. Daniel walked through the apartment alone after Patricia left, imagining Emma running down the hallway, picking which bedroom she wanted, decorating it with her drawings and stuffed animals. He imagined cooking actual meals in the kitchen, sitting at a real table for dinner instead of perched on the pull-out couch. He imagined waking up in a bed that wasn't on the floor, getting dressed in a room that wasn't also his daughter's bedroom. This was what normal felt like. This was what he'd been fighting for. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Heard you accepted the apartment. Smart choice. How are you holding up? Daniel typed back. Better every hour. Meeting with Lauren's lawyer tomorrow. Remember, you hold all the cards now. Don't let them convince you otherwise. That evening, Daniel took Emma to the new apartment. She stood in the doorway, her mouth forming a perfect O of surprise. This is ours. This is ours. Which bedroom do you want? Emma ran down the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the empty space, checking both rooms before racing back. The one with the window seat. Can I really have it? It's all yours, sweetheart. We'll move in this weekend. She threw her arms around his waist. This is the best day ever. Daniel wished he could freeze this moment, bottle it up, and save it for when things got hard. Because tomorrow he'd face Lauren and Whitmore, and despite Sarah's confidence, despite his new job and apartment, part of him was still terrified that somehow they'd find a way to take this all away. The mediation center occupied the ground floor of a modern building near City Hall, all glass and neutral tones designed to feel non-threatening. Daniel arrived 15 minutes early, wearing his suit and the confidence Sarah had told him to project, even if he didn't quite feel it yet. Sarah was already there, reviewing documents in the waiting area. Good, you're early. That's good. She looked him over approvingly. You clean up well. Remember what we discussed? Let me do most of the talking, but if they address you directly, answer honestly and calmly. Don't get drawn into arguments. Understood. They're going to try to make you feel guilty, like you're being vindictive or cruel by fighting for full custody. Don't buy it. You're protecting your daughter. There's nothing cruel about that. At precisely 2 p.m., a receptionist led them to a conference room where Lauren and Richard Whitmore were already seated. Lauren looked different from the polished, confident woman who'd sat across from Daniel 2 nights ago. Her makeup was too heavy, as if she'd been crying and tried to cover it, her hands twisted together on the table, and she wouldn't meet Daniel's eyes. Whitmore, by contrast, looked as smooth as ever. He stood as they entered, extending his hand to Sarah. Miss Chen, thank you for agreeing to meet. Mr. Whitmore. Sarah's handshake was brief, professional, and gave away nothing. They all sat, the table a barrier between them. Daniel positioned himself directly across from Lauren, refusing to look away when she finally glanced up at him. Let her see what she was up against. Whitmore opened a leather portfolio. I think we can all agree that the best outcome here is what's best for Emma. A prolonged court battle benefits no one, least of all the child caught in the middle. I agree, Sarah said, which is why my client filed for full custody, to protect Emma from being used as a pawn in her mother's financial schemes. That's a rather inflammatory characterization of, is it? Your client demanded $50,000 and threatened to file for custody if she didn't receive it. That's textbook extortion, Mr. Whitmore. I'm sure the judge will find it very interesting. Whitmore's jaw tightened. My client was simply trying to negotiate fair compensation for what? Being an absent parent? Missing birthdays and holidays? Canceling visits so often that her daughter stopped asking when mommy was coming? Sarah pulled out a document. I have a timeline here. 16 scheduled visits over the past year. Lauren canceled 9 of them. That's more than 50%. She had valid reasons. Work commitments and vacation plans with her fiancé aren't valid reasons for abandoning your child, counselor. They're choices. Lauren chose her new life over her daughter repeatedly. The record is clear. Lauren finally spoke, her voice small. I made mistakes. I know I did. But I'm trying to do better now. I want to be part of Emma's life. Then why demand money? Daniel said quietly. All eyes turned to him. If you really wanted to be part of her life, you would have asked for more time with her, not cash. You would have shown up to the visits you already had instead of canceling them. But you didn't want Emma. You wanted $50,000. That's not... I was just... Lauren's composure cracked. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Marcus and I have expenses, and you thought you could use our daughter as leverage to solve your financial problems. Daniel's voice remained calm, but the words cut deep. That's what this is about, Lauren. Not love, not Emma's welfare. Money. Mr. Brooks, Whitmore interjected, inflammatory accusations aren't productive. They're not accusations if they're true. Sarah placed a recording device on the table. I had a very interesting conversation with the receptionist at Patterson and Associates. Apparently, she overheard quite a bit of what was said during your meeting with my client, including direct quotes about taking Emma away unless Daniel paid up. I wonder how that will sound in court. Whitmore's face paled slightly. Recording someone without their consent is perfectly legal in California as long as one party to the conversation consents. The receptionist consented to share her recollection with me, and what she recalled was very clear. Your client threatened to file for custody as leverage for financial gain. The room fell silent. Daniel watched Lauren's face cycle through emotions: anger, fear, shame. She looked at Whitmore, who was clearly recalculating his strategy. Perhaps, Whitmore said slowly, we can reach an agreement that avoids litigation. My client is willing to withdraw any custody demands if your client agrees to maintain the current arrangement without modification. Not good enough, Sarah said immediately. My client is seeking full legal custody in addition to physical custody, with Lauren's visitation limited to supervised visits until she can demonstrate consistent, reliable parenting. Supervised visits? That's excessive. Is it? She's proven she can't be trusted to follow through on commitments. She's proven she's willing to use Emma as a bargaining chip. Supervised visits protect Emma while giving Lauren the opportunity to rebuild trust. If she's genuinely interested in being a mother and not just in avoiding embarrassment in court. Lauren's eyes filled with tears. You're trying to take her away from me completely. No, Daniel said. I'm trying to protect her from being hurt again. Every time you cancel a visit, Emma thinks it's her fault. She thinks she's not good enough for you to want to see her. Do you have any idea what that does to a 6-year-old? I never meant to hurt her, but you did, over and over. And then when I wouldn't give you money, you threatened to hurt her even more by dragging her through a custody battle. Daniel leaned forward. I spent a year watching our daughter cry over you. I held her when she asked why mommy didn't love her anymore. I made excuses for you, tried to protect your image in her eyes. But I'm done protecting you, Lauren. Emma deserves better. The tears were streaming down Lauren's face now, her carefully applied makeup running in dark streaks. I want to do better. I swear I do. Marcus and I were having problems, and I thought if I could just use your daughter to solve them? Sarah's voice was ice. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to agree to my client's terms. Full legal custody for Daniel, supervised visitation for you on a schedule determined by the court. Or we go to trial, and I put on a show that will make you wish you'd never threatened this man. Your choice. Whitmore whispered urgently to Lauren, but she was shaking her head, the fight draining out of her like water from a broken glass. I can't fight this, she said hoarsely. I can't. Marcus doesn't know I tried to get money from you, Daniel. If this goes to court, if it becomes public, he'll leave me. Then you should have thought of that before you tried to extort me. Please. Lauren looked at him with genuine desperation now. Please don't do this. I'll agree to supervised visits. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't drag all of this into court. Daniel looked at Sarah, who gave him a slight nod. This was what they'd wanted. Lauren broken, agreeing to terms without a fight. But seeing her like this, mascara-stained and begging, didn't feel like victory. It just felt sad. I want it in writing, Daniel said. Full legal custody for me. You get supervised visits every other Sunday, 2 hours maximum. The supervisor is chosen by me and paid for by you. You don't cancel unless Emma is genuinely sick, and if you do cancel, you lose that visit. No makeup dates. And Lauren? He waited until she met his eyes. If you ever threaten to take her from me again, if you ever use her as a weapon or a bargaining chip, I will go back to court and cut you out of her life entirely. Are we clear? Lauren nodded, unable to speak. Ms. Chen will draw up the agreement, Whitmore said, defeat heavy in his voice. We'll sign it tomorrow. Today, Sarah corrected. I'll have it ready in 2 hours. You'll sign it before you leave this building. That's non-negotiable. My client has been generous enough to agree to any visitation at all given your behavior. Take the deal, Mr. Whitmore, before I convince him to change his mind. 2 hours later, Daniel walked out of the mediation center with a signed agreement in his hand. Full legal custody, limited supervised visitation for Lauren. Everything he'd wanted, everything he'd been willing to fight for, won without ever stepping into a courtroom. Sarah walked him to his car, her satisfaction evident. That, she said, is what we call a decisive victory. Lauren won't be a problem anymore. She's too worried about Marcus finding out what she tried to do. I almost feel bad for her. Don't. She made her choices. She could have been a parent. She could have shown up, been present, built a relationship with Emma. Instead, she abandoned her daughter and then tried to use her as an ATM. You don't get to play the victim when you're the one who caused the damage. What happens now? I file this agreement with the court. It becomes part of the official custody order. Emma is legally yours, Daniel. Congratulations. They shook hands and Sarah's expression softened. You did well in there. Stayed calm, spoke truthfully, didn't let them manipulate you. Your daughter is lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Take the weekend, move into your new apartment, start your new job Monday. And Daniel, enjoy this. You earned it. Daniel drove home, to his old apartment for now, in a daze. He'd won. Actually won. Emma was his, legally and completely. Lauren couldn't threaten him anymore, couldn't use his poverty as a weapon, couldn't take away the person who mattered most. He picked Emma up from Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, where she'd been coloring at the kitchen table. Daddy, you're home. I am, and I have some news. He knelt down to her level. Remember how Mommy wanted to see you more? Well, we worked it out. She's going to visit you sometimes, but you're going to stay with me. Always. Is that okay? Emma's face lit up. Really? I don't have to go live with Mommy? Never. You're staying with me. She hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. Good. Because you're my favorite person in the whole world. You're mine too, sweetheart. Mrs. Rodriguez was smiling from the kitchen doorway, her eyes suspiciously bright. Mijo, this is wonderful news. It is. And Mrs. Rodriguez, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. For watching Emma, for believing in me, for being there when I had no one else. Your family, Daniel. Family helps family. But I think you won't need my help so much anymore, yes? With your new job? I'll still need you, just different hours now. If you're willing? For you and this angel, always. That night, Daniel and Emma packed boxes in their tiny apartment. Most of what they owned could fit in Daniel's car. Their clothes, Emma's toys, a few dishes and books. Everything else was secondhand furniture that wouldn't make the trip. Are we really moving tomorrow? Emma asked, carefully placing her stuffed rabbit in a box. Really, truly, you're going to have your own room, your own closet, space for all your things. Can I paint my room? We can paint it any color you want. Purple? Even purple. Emma was too excited to sleep that night, talking until almost 10 about how she'd decorate her room, where her toys would go, whether they could get a pet fish. Daniel let her chatter, savoring every word, every plan, every dream. This was what childhood should be, excited about the future, feeling safe and loved, not worried about whether Daddy could afford groceries or if Mommy was going to take her away. The next morning, Daniel loaded everything into his car and Mrs. Rodriguez's van, which she'd insisted on lending him. It took 3 trips to move it all, and by early afternoon they were standing in their new apartment surrounded by boxes. "It's so big!" Emma ran from room to room, her voice echoing in the empty space. "Daddy, come see! I can do cartwheels in the living room." She demonstrated, nearly knocking over a lamp in the process, and Daniel laughed harder than he had in months. They spent the afternoon unpacking, making trips to the discount store for basics: shower curtain, dish soap, a cheap table and chairs. Emma insisted on helping with everything, carrying her clothes to her new room in careful armfuls, arranging her toys on the windowsill. By evening, the apartment was starting to feel like home. Daniel ordered pizza, a luxury he could finally afford, and they ate sitting on the floor of the living room, the San Francisco skyline visible through windows that actually had curtains. "Daddy," Emma said around a mouthful of pepperoni, "are you happy?" "I'm the happiest I've been in a long time, sweetheart." "Are you happy?" "Super happy. This is the best place ever." After Emma fell asleep in her new room, her own room, with a door she could close and walls she could decorate, Daniel stood in the doorway, watching her breathe. The evening light filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across her peaceful face. She was safe. She was his. Nothing could change that now. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Heard you settled without going to trial. Well done. Ready for Monday?" Daniel looked around the apartment, at the boxes still to unpack, at the furniture they'd need to buy, at all the pieces of a normal life finally coming together. He typed back, "More than ready. Thank you for giving me the chance to build this." "You built it yourself. I just removed some obstacles. See you Monday morning, architect." Architect. Not janitor. Not broke single father. Architect. Daniel walked to his own bedroom, not a sleeping bag on the floor, and lay down on the mattress he'd bought that afternoon. It wasn't fancy, but it was his, in an apartment that was his, in a life he'd fought for and won. Monday, he would start fresh at Ashford Industries. He would prove Victoria's faith in him wasn't misplaced. He would design buildings that mattered, that helped people, that made the city better. But tonight, he was just Daniel Brooks, father to the most amazing 6-year-old in the world, lying in his own bed in his own apartment, finally able to breathe without the weight of fear crushing his chest. He'd been drowning for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to touch solid ground. Now, finally, he was standing. Monday morning arrived with fog rolling in from the bay, softening the edges of the city and making everything look like a watercolor painting. Daniel stood in front of the bathroom mirror in his new apartment, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. His hands were steady, but his heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. First day, new beginning, everything he'd worked for condensed into this single moment. "Daddy, you look fancy!" Emma appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school in the outfit they'd laid out together last night. "Are you nervous?" "A little bit. Is that silly?" "Nope. I get nervous on the first day of school, too." She crossed to him and took his hand. "But then I remember that I'm smart and brave, and the nervous feeling goes away." "You're smart and brave too, Daddy." Daniel knelt down and hugged her, this small person who somehow always knew exactly what to say. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from you." They had breakfast together at their new kitchen table, cereal and toast and orange juice, the morning sun streaming through clean windows. Normal. Beautifully, perfectly normal. Daniel dropped Emma at school, watching her run toward the building with her backpack bouncing, turning to wave at him before disappearing inside. Then he drove to the Sterling Tower, parked in the employee garage instead of on the street for the first time, and took the elevator to the 18th floor. The reception area was already buzzing with activity. The same receptionist who'd greeted him on Wednesday smiled as he approached. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks. Welcome to your first day. Rachel Morrison asked that you come straight to her office when you arrived." Daniel found his way to the residential design division, where Rachel was already at her desk, surrounded by architectural renderings and coffee cups in various stages of emptiness. "Daniel, perfect timing." She stood extending her hand, ready to jump in with both feet. That's the only way I know how. Good answer. Come on, I'll show you your space, and then we'll talk about your first project. His desk was exactly as he'd seen it on Wednesday. Clean, organized, waiting. A nameplate had appeared since his last visit. Daniel Brooks, junior architect. He ran his fingers over the engraved letters, still half convinced he'd wake up and find this was all an elaborate dream. It's real, Rachel said, watching him. I promise. Now, let me show you what we're working on. She led him to the conference room, where the walls were covered in plans for a housing development in the Bayview district. Mixed income units, sustainable design, community spaces integrated throughout. It was ambitious, idealistic, and exactly the kind of project Daniel would have designed if someone had asked him to imagine his dream job. This is the Bayview Commons project, Rachel explained. 200 units ranging from affordable housing to market-rate condos, all in the same community. The goal is to create genuine economic diversity without segregation. Ground-level retail, a community center, green spaces. Victoria's been pushing for this for 2 years. It's incredible. It's also behind schedule. Our lead designer left 3 months ago for a job in Seattle, and we've been scrambling to pick up the slack. That's where you come in. Rachel pulled out a specific section of the plans. This is Building C, the affordable housing component. 80 units, 1 to 3 bedrooms. We need someone to redesign the interior layouts to maximize space efficiency without sacrificing livability. Think you can handle that? Daniel studied the plans, his architect's eye immediately seeing the problems. The current design wasted space in awkward hallways. The kitchens were too small for families. The bedrooms barely fit standard furniture. But he could also see the solutions, the ways to reconfigure walls and doorways to make the spaces work. I can handle it, but I'd want to make some structural changes too. These support columns, if we move them here and here, we could open up the living areas significantly. Rachel's eyebrows rose. That's actually a really good idea, but it would require engineering approval. I know, but if we're designing homes for families who can't afford much, we should give them every inch of space we can. These units are 700 square feet. That's tight for a single parent with 2 kids. We need to make it work. You sound like you're speaking from experience. I lived in a 400 square foot apartment with my daughter until 3 days ago. I know exactly what it's like to try to make a too small space feel like home. Rachel studied him for a long moment, then smiled. Victoria was right about you. Okay, let's do it. I'll set up a meeting with the structural engineers for tomorrow. In the meantime, start sketching out your ideas. I want to see what you come up with. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of CAD software tutorials, meetings with other team members, and sketching layouts until his hand cramped. Daniel had forgotten how good it felt to design, to solve spatial puzzles, to create something that would exist in the real world and affect real people's lives. By lunch, he had 3 different layout options for Building C, each one maximizing space in different ways. Rachel reviewed them over sandwiches in the break room. These are strong, really strong. The second option is my favorite. The way you've created a separate sleeping nook in the 1-bedroom units is genius. Parents need privacy too. That was the hardest part when Emma was younger. No space that was just mine, no way to have adult conversations or decompress without her overhearing. I wanted to build in that separation. Well, it works. Let's present these to Victoria this afternoon and see what she thinks. Daniel's stomach dropped. This afternoon? I've only been here 5 hours. Welcome to Ashford Industries. We move fast. Victoria's philosophy is that good ideas shouldn't wait for the perfect moment. If you have something worth showing, you show it. At 3 p.m., Daniel found himself back in Victoria's office. His sketches spread across her conference table. She studied them in silence, her sharp eyes moving from one design to the next, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. Rachel stood beside Daniel, relaxed and confident in a way he envied. Finally, Victoria looked up. The second option. That's the one. Really? Daniel couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. Really? It's thoughtful, efficient, and it shows you understand who's going to live in these spaces. That nook in the 1-bedroom is brilliant. And these storage solutions in the kitchen, most architects forget that low-income families can't afford to eat out, so they need real cooking space. She turned to Rachel. What's the timeline for getting engineering approval?
Meeting tomorrow at 10. If they sign off, we could have revised plans ready by end of week. Make it happen. Daniel, good work. This is exactly what I was hoping for when I brought you on board. Walking out of Victoria's office, Daniel felt lighter than air. His first day, his first project, and he'd already made an impact. Rachel clapped him on the shoulder as they headed back to their desks. That's 2 for 2. First you impressed her enough to hire you, now you impressed her with your work. Keep this up and you'll be senior architect before you know it. I just want to do good work, work that matters. Then you're in the right place. The afternoon brought more training, more meetings, more information than Daniel's brain could possibly hold. By 5:30, when people started packing up to leave, his head was spinning, but his chest felt warm. He'd done it. Survived his first day. More than survived. Excelled. He picked Emma up from after-school care, a program he could finally afford that meant she spent her afternoons doing homework and crafts instead of sitting alone in their apartment. She bounded to the car full of stories about her day, about the friends she'd made, about the art project they were doing. And guess what? My teacher said we're having a parent night next Thursday. Can you come, Daddy? Of course I can come. I wouldn't miss it. Really? You won't have to work? The question hit him harder than it should have. How many times had he missed things because of his night shift? How many school events and performances had he been too exhausted to attend? Really? My new job? I work during the day. Evenings are for you. Emma's smile could have powered the whole city. They made dinner together in their new kitchen, spaghetti and sauce from a jar, but tasting like celebration. Emma chattered about her day while Daniel listened, really listened, not distracted by exhaustion or worry about bills. After dinner, they painted Emma's room the purple she'd requested, making a mess of themselves in the process but laughing until their sides hurt. At bedtime, Emma hugged him extra tight. Daddy, this is the best life ever. It is, isn't it, baby? Are you happy now? Like really happy? Daniel thought about the question. A week ago, he'd been standing in the rain, broke and defeated, certain he was about to lose everything. Now he had a career, a home, his daughter safe beside him, and a future that looked nothing like the desperate scramble his life had been. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm really happy. Good. You deserve to be happy. After Emma fell asleep, Daniel sat at their new kitchen table with his laptop, reviewing the day's work and sketching more ideas for the Bayview Commons project. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. Heard your first day went well. Congratulations. Also, Lauren's first supervised visit is scheduled for Sunday. Just a heads up. Daniel stared at the message, feeling his good mood deflate slightly. He'd almost forgotten about Lauren in the rush of new beginnings. Almost forgotten that she was still part of Emma's life, even in this limited capacity. He typed back, "Thanks for the warning. How do I prepare, Emma?" Be honest. Tell her mommy is coming to visit, that there will be another adult there to help, and that she's safe. Kids are resilient if they feel protected. That night, lying in his own bed in his own room, Daniel thought about the conversation he'd need to have with Emma. About Lauren, about supervised visits, about the complicated reality that sometimes people who love you also hurt you, and you have to find a way to forgive them without forgetting. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, he was just going to enjoy the peace. The week passed in a whirlwind of work and adjustment. The structural engineers approved Daniel's redesign with minor modifications. He threw himself into refining the plans, working closely with Rachel to ensure every detail served the future residents. He attended team meetings, learned the company's design software, and started to build relationships with his colleagues. On Thursday, he attended Emma's parent night, sitting in a tiny chair designed for 6-year-olds while her teacher showed him Emma's work. Math worksheets with gold stars. A story she'd written about her daddy, who was the bravest person in the world. A drawing of their new apartment with hearts floating around it. Emma is a delight, her teacher, Ms. Patterson, said warmly. She's kind to other children, enthusiastic about learning, and she talks about you constantly. You're clearly doing something right, Mr. Brooks. Daniel felt his throat tighten. I'm trying. It shows. She's a happy, well-adjusted child. That doesn't happen by accident. Friday afternoon, Victoria called him into her office again. Daniel's stomach clenched reflexively. A week wasn't long enough to shake the feeling that good things were temporary, that someone was going to take it all away. but Victoria was smiling. Sit down, Daniel. I wanted to check in on your first week. It's been incredible. Challenging, but incredible. Rachel says you're a natural, that you think like someone who's lived in the spaces you're designing, not just studied them in school. I have lived in them. That helps. It does. Which brings me to why I wanted to talk to you. Victoria pulled out a folder.
We're bidding on a new project, a renovation of the Carlton Hotel into permanent supportive housing. 120 units for people transitioning out of homelessness. It's complicated work. The building is historic, so we're constrained by preservation requirements. The residents will need specific accommodations. Some have disabilities, some are dealing with addiction recovery, some are families who've been living in shelters. It sounds challenging. It is. It's also the most important project we'll do this year. These are people who've been failed by every system meant to help them. Our design could be the difference between them thriving and falling back into homelessness.
I want you on the team. Daniel's breath caught. I've only been here a week. And you've already proven you understand what we're trying to do. You design with empathy, with real understanding of how people live. That's rare, Daniel. Most architects design for awards and magazine covers. You design for people. That's the skill I need on this project. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Rachel will still be lead, but I want your perspective throughout the process, especially on the family units. You know what single parents need in housing. You've lived it. Then yes. Absolutely yes. Good. We start Monday. This weekend, take Emma somewhere fun, relax, because next week is going to be intense. Saturday, Daniel took Emma to the zoo, something they'd never been able to afford before. They spent hours watching penguins and riding the carousel and eating overpriced ice cream without him having to check his bank account first. Emma's joy was infectious, her laughter echoing through the exhibits, and Daniel found himself taking mental notes. How children moved through spaces, what captured their attention, how to design housing that gave families access to this kind of happiness. Sunday came too quickly.
The supervised visit with Lauren was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a family center in the Marina District. Daniel had explained it to Emma the night before, keeping his voice neutral and calm even though his insides were churning. Mommy wants to see you tomorrow, but because she hasn't been able to visit very much, there's going to be another grown-up there to help. Her name is Ms. Jennifer, and she's very nice. Emma had nodded slowly, processing. Will you be there? I'll drop you off and pick you up, but the visit is just you and Mommy and Ms. Jennifer. What if I don't want to go? Daniel had crouched to her level, taking her hands. You don't have to if you really don't want to. But I think Mommy wants to try to do better, and maybe it's worth giving her a chance. What do you think? Emma had chewed her lip, thinking. Will she stay this time, or will she leave again? The question broke his heart. I don't know, baby. But whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere, I promise. Now, walking into the family center with Emma's small hand in his, Daniel felt every protective instinct he had screaming at him to turn around, to take his daughter home where she was safe from disappointment. But he'd promised to give Lauren this chance, and he kept his promises. Jennifer Martinez, the court-appointed supervisor, met them in the lobby. She was in her 40s with warm eyes and an easy smile that immediately put Emma at ease. You must be Emma. I'm Ms. Jennifer. Your mom is waiting in the playroom. Would you like to see? Emma looked up at Daniel, uncertainty written across her face. It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be right here when you're done. Promise? Promise. Emma took Miss Jennifer's hand and disappeared down the hallway. Daniel sank into a chair in the waiting area, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. 2 hours. He had to wait 2 hours not knowing how it was going. Whether Lauren would be kind or dismissive, whether she'd engage with Emma or spend the whole time on her phone. The minutes crawled by. Daniel tried to read a magazine but couldn't focus. Tried to check work emails but couldn't concentrate. Mostly he just sat there listening to the clock tick, praying this wasn't a mistake. When Emma finally emerged, her face was unreadable. Not upset but not happy either, just thoughtful. How was it? Daniel asked, pulling her into a hug. Okay, Mommy said she was sorry for not visiting more. She brought me a stuffed unicorn. Emma held up a plush toy that probably cost more than Daniel's weekly grocery budget. But she mostly talked about her new house, and her wedding plans. Daniel's jaw tightened. Of course she did. Ms. Jennifer approached with a clipboard. Emma did great. Lauren was trying. Not perfect, but present. We'll reassess after a few more visits. Thank you. In the car, Emma was quiet. Daniel waited, giving her space to process. Daddy, she finally said, I don't think Mommy knows how to be a mommy anymore. The observation was devastating in its simple clarity. What makes you say that? She doesn't know what grade I'm in, or that I don't like strawberry ice cream anymore, or that my favorite color changed from pink to purple. She doesn't know me. Maybe she's trying to learn again. Maybe. But you already know everything about me, because you're always there. Emma leaned her head against the window. I'm glad I live with you. Me too, baby. Me too. That evening, after Emma was in bed, Daniel sat on the couch in their living room and let the emotions he'd been holding back all day wash over him. Relief that the visit was over, anger at Lauren for being so self-absorbed, sadness that Emma had to grow up with a mother who didn't know her favorite color. But underneath it all was something else. Gratitude. Because he did know Emma. He knew she liked purple now, that she'd outgrown strawberry ice cream, that she was in first grade and excelling at math. He knew because he was there, every day, every moment that mattered. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Ready for Monday? Daniel looked around his apartment, at the home he'd built, the life he'd created. He thought about the Carlton Hotel project, about designing housing for people who'd been where he'd almost ended up, desperate, one paycheck from disaster, invisible to the world. He typed back, more ready than you know. Because he wasn't just designing buildings anymore. He was designing hope. Second chances. The kind of stability that let people breathe again, that let them imagine futures instead of just surviving presents. Monday morning, Daniel walked into the conference room where the Carlton Hotel team was assembled. Rachel introduced him to the other architects, the engineers, the social workers who'd be advising on resident needs. They spread the building plans across a table that had probably cost more than Daniel's first car. Here's the challenge, Rachel began. The Carlton is 100 years old. Beautiful bones, but nothing meets current code. We need to preserve the historic character while making it functional for permanent supportive housing. That means accessibility, safety features, but also dignity. These residents have been treated like problems to hide. We're going to design spaces that treat them like people. Daniel studied the plans, seeing past the lines and measurements to the lives that would unfold in these spaces. People who'd slept on sidewalks would sleep in real beds. Children who'd done homework in shelter cafeterias would have desks in their own rooms. Families who'd been invisible would have addresses, mailboxes, places to call home. What if we created community pods instead of long hallways, Daniel suggested. Clusters of units around shared spaces. It would reduce the institutional feel and encourage community building. One of the senior architects frowned. That would complicate the floor plan significantly. But it would make it feel less like a shelter and more like a neighborhood. People who've been isolated need connection. We can design for that. Rachel was nodding. I like it. Let's explore it. They spent 6 hours sketching possibilities, arguing about details, pushing each other to think bigger. By the end of the day, they had a rough concept that was bold, ambitious, and exactly what the project needed. Walking to his car that evening, Daniel's phone rang. Lauren. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Daniel, I wanted to thank you. Her voice was quiet, stripped of its usual edge. For letting me see Emma yesterday, and for not making it harder than it had to be. She's your daughter. You deserve the chance to know her. I don't deserve anything. I know that. I messed up so badly. A pause. She's wonderful, smart and kind, and so much more mature than 6-year-olds should have to be. You did that. You raised her right. Daniel didn't know what to say. This wasn't the Lauren he knew, the one who blamed him for everything, who wielded her dissatisfaction like a weapon. She is wonderful, but she needs her mother too, a version of you that shows up and stays. I know, I'm trying. Marcus and I are in counseling, working through some things, and I'm going to keep coming to these visits, Daniel. I'm going to prove I can do better. I hope you do, for Emma's sake. After hanging up, Daniel sat in his car for a long moment. Maybe people could change. Maybe Lauren would find a way to be the mother Emma deserved. Maybe their broken family could become something different, something functional, if not whole. Or maybe she'd disappoint Emma again. Maybe this was just another phase, another promise that would evaporate when things got difficult. But that was future worry. Right now, Daniel had a job he loved, a daughter who was safe and happy, and a life he'd built from nothing but determination and one person's faith in his potential. He drove home to Emma, to their purple-painted bedroom and kitchen table dinners, to bedtime stories and morning routines and all the beautiful, ordinary moments that had once seemed impossible. He'd been drowning. Then he'd been surviving. Now, finally, he was living. The weeks that followed took on a rhythm that felt almost surreal in its normalcy. Daniel would wake in his own bedroom, make breakfast with Emma in their spacious kitchen, drop her at school, and spend his days designing spaces that would change lives. Evenings were for homework help and cooking experiments, and the kind of unhurried conversations he'd never had time for when exhaustion was his constant companion. Lauren's supervised visits happened every other Sunday, and slowly, painfully, she was learning to be present. She remembered Emma's favorite color now, asked about school, stayed off her phone. But it was 3 months into Daniel's new life when everything crystallized into something more permanent, more real than he dared to hope. The Carlton Hotel project was nearing completion of its design phase. Daniel had poured everything he had into those plans, working late some nights after Emma was asleep, sketching variations until his vision blurred. The community pods concept had evolved into something beautiful. Clusters of apartments arranged around shared courtyards with community kitchens and play spaces and gardens where residents could grow vegetables. Every detail was intentional, designed not just for function, but for dignity. Rachel had been impressed enough to give him lead on the family units section. 20 apartments specifically configured for parents with children, each one incorporating the lessons Daniel had learned from his own struggles. Bedroom doors that actually closed for privacy. Storage solutions that didn't require expensive furniture. Kitchen layouts that made cooking for kids efficient and safe. Windows positioned so parents could watch children play while making dinner. It was a Tuesday morning when Victoria called the entire team into the main conference room. Daniel felt the familiar flutter of nerves. Even 3 months in, being summoned by Victoria still carried weight. The team assembled around the long table, architects and engineers and social workers all looking curious. Victoria stood at the head of the table, and beside her stood someone Daniel didn't recognize, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and an air of quiet authority. Good morning, everyone. I want to introduce you to Margaret Chen, Director of the Housing Authority. She's here to review our Carlton Hotel proposal before it goes to the City Council next week. Margaret smiled warmly. I've seen a lot of housing proposals in my 30 years with the city. Most of them are adequate. Some are good. Very few are exceptional. She tapped the rolled plans in front of her. This is exceptional. A collective exhale seemed to move through the room. The community pod concept alone would be worth approving, Margaret continued, but it's the details that sold me. The family units designed by... She consulted her notes. Daniel Brooks show an understanding of how people actually live that I rarely see. The separate sleeping nooks, the storage solutions, the way the kitchens are positioned. Someone designed these who understands what it's like to raise a child in limited space. All eyes turned to Daniel. He felt heat rise to his face. I had good motivation, he said quietly. Well, your motivation has resulted in what I believe will be a model for supportive housing across the state. I'm recommending full approval to the council, and I'm going to be pushing for additional funding to implement all of your design elements without compromise. This project is going to change lives. After the meeting, as people filed out congratulating each other, Victoria caught Daniel's arm. Walk with me. They took the elevator to the 20th floor, Victoria silent until they reached her office. She gestured for Daniel to sit, then poured 2 glasses of water from the carafe on her desk. 3 months ago, you were scrubbing floors in this building. Today, the Housing Authority Director called your work exceptional. How does that feel? Daniel took a sip of water, trying to find words adequate to the moment. Like I'm finally doing what I was meant to do. You are. And Daniel, I want you to know that hiring you wasn't charity. It wasn't me doing a good deed. I invested in you because I saw something that would benefit my company, and I was right. Your work on Carlton has been invaluable. Thank you for the opportunity. Stop thanking me. Victoria's voice was firm but kind. You earned this. Every bit of it. The question now is, what's next? Next? You've proven yourself on Carlton. Rachel is singing your praises to anyone who'll listen. I'm promoting you to mid-level architect, effective immediately. 15% salary increase, and you'll start leading your own projects instead of just contributing to others. Daniel's water glass stopped halfway to his lips. I've only been here 3 months. And you've accomplished what some architects take years to achieve. The promotion is based on merit, not tenure. Don't insult us both by pretending you don't deserve it. That evening, Daniel picked up Emma from after-school care with news bursting inside him like champagne bubbles. She climbed into the car, chattering about a science project on butterflies, and he let her talk, savoring the anticipation of his own announcement. At home, he made her favorite dinner, mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs. Nothing fancy, but perfection to a 6-year-old. After they'd eaten and cleaned up together, he sat her down at the kitchen table. Emma, I have some exciting news. Remember how I told you I was working on a special building? One that would help families who don't have homes? The big hotel one? That's right. Well, the people in charge of the city really liked what I designed, and my boss was so happy with my work that she's giving me a promotion. Emma's face scrunched in concentration. What's a promotion? It means I did such a good job that they want me to do even more important work, and they're going to pay me more money. Does that mean we're rich? Daniel laughed. Not rich, but comfortable. Safe. We'll never have to worry about rent or groceries again. Emma threw her arms around his neck. You're the best daddy in the whole world. You're the best daughter in the whole world. Daddy? Emma pulled back, her expression suddenly serious. Are you happy now? Like the kind of happy that stays? The question pierced him. How many times had she watched him struggle, seen worry etched into his face, felt the anxiety that radiated from him during the worst days? Yeah, baby. I'm the kind of happy that stays. Good. Because you deserve happy. Later that night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel stood at the window of his living room looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen, who he'd kept in touch with even though the custody case was long settled. Heard about your promotion. Congratulations. You've come a long way from that first meeting in my office. He typed back, thanks to you. I'd be fighting a losing battle without your help. You'd have fought it anyway. I just made sure you won. How's Emma doing with Lauren's visits? Daniel considered the question. Lauren had been consistent for 3 months now, never missing a Sunday, actually engaging with Emma during their supervised time. It wasn't perfect. She still talked too much about her own life, still sometimes seemed uncomfortable with the messier aspects of parenting, but she was trying. Better. She's learning who Emma actually is instead of who she imagined her to be. That's progress. Speaking of which, Lauren's lawyer contacted me. She wants to request unsupervised visits. Daniel's chest tightened. Already? 3 months of consistent supervised visits with positive reports from the monitor. It's not unreasonable, but it's ultimately your call. You have full legal custody. You can say no. Daniel thought about Emma's face after that first supervised visit, her observation that Mommy didn't know her anymore. But he also thought about the past few weeks, how Emma had started mentioning things Mommy had said, small details that suggested Lauren was actually listening now. Let me talk to Emma, see how she feels about it. Smart. Let me know what you decide. The conversation with Emma happened on Saturday morning over pancakes. Daniel had learned that important discussions went better with food, something about the ritual of eating together that made hard topics easier. Emma, I want to ask you something about Mommy's visits. Emma looked up from her pancake, syrup on her chin. Okay. You've been seeing Mommy every other Sunday for a while now. Miss Jennifer says you're doing really well together. Mommy wants to know if maybe sometimes you could visit her without Miss Jennifer there. Just you and Mommy. What do you think about that? Emma was quiet, chewing thoughtfully. Would it still be just 2 hours? At first, yes. If it goes well, maybe longer. And I'd still live here? With you? Always. Nothing changes that. This would just be visits. Emma took another bite of pancake, clearly thinking hard. Can I try it once and see if I like it? Of course. And if you don't like it, if it doesn't feel right, we go back to how things are now. You're in charge of this decision, okay? No one's going to make you do anything you don't want to do. Okay, I'll try it. But Daddy? She reached across the table for his hand. You'll come get me if I call? The second you call, I promise. The first unsupervised visit was scheduled for the following Sunday. Lauren was supposed to pick Emma up at noon and have her back by 2. Daniel spent the morning trying not to hover, reminding Emma 3 times that she could call if she needed anything, checking his phone obsessively to make sure the ringer was on. When Lauren's car pulled up, a sleek Mercedes that Marcus had probably bought, Daniel walked Emma down to meet her. Lauren stepped out looking nervous, which was so unlike her usual confidence that it caught Daniel off guard. Hi, Emma. Lauren knelt down, meeting Emma at eye level. I thought we could go to the park and maybe get ice cream after. Does that sound fun? Emma nodded, glancing back at Daniel for reassurance. Have fun, sweetheart. I'll see you at 2. He watched them drive away, Lauren's car disappearing around the corner, and felt his stomach twist with worry. 2 hours. He just had to trust Lauren for 2 hours. The call came at 1:15. Daniel's heart stopped when he saw Emma's name on the caller ID. He answered before the second ring. Emma, are you okay? I'm okay, Daddy. Her voice was small but not distressed. I just wanted to hear your voice. Where are you? At the ice cream place. Mommy's in the bathroom. I told her I needed to call you. Do you want me to come get you? A pause. No, I'm okay. I just missed you. Daniel's eyes stung. I miss you too, baby. But you're being so brave. I'm proud of you. Mommy's coming back. I have to go. Love you, Daddy. Love you too. When Lauren brought Emma home at 2 on the dot, his daughter bounded out of the car full of stories about the playground and the ice cream and how Mommy had actually pushed her on the swings. How was it? Daniel asked after Lauren had driven away. Good. Different from the visits with Miss Jennifer, but good. Mommy listened when I talked, and she didn't check her phone even once. Small victories. But they were victories nonetheless. The weeks turned into months, summer arrived, and with it came the groundbreaking ceremony for the Carlton Hotel renovation. Daniel stood in the crowd of city officials and reporters and community members, watching Victoria give a speech about second chances and dignity and the power of thoughtful design. When she mentioned him by name, crediting his work on the family units, the applause felt surreal. A reporter approached him afterward, a young woman with a notebook and earnest eyes. Mr. Brooks, I understand you only joined Ashford Industries 6 months ago. How does it feel to be leading a project of this scale? Daniel thought about the question, about the journey from that rainy night outside Patterson and Associates to this moment, standing at a podium with his name on the architectural plans. 6 months ago, I was working as a janitor in the building where I now design. I was broke, fighting for custody of my daughter, certain I'd lost any chance at the career I'd trained for. Someone gave me an opportunity based not on my credentials but on my character. This project is my way of paying that forward, designing spaces for people who need the same second chance I got. The reporter scribbled notes. That's quite a story. It's not just my story. It's the story of everyone who's ever been counted out, dismissed, told they're not good enough. The Carlton residents, they're people who've been invisible. I was invisible for 5 years. I know what that feels like. These buildings we're creating, they're not just shelter. They're a message that you matter, that your life has value. That's what architecture should do. The article ran the next day, a human interest piece that somehow got picked up by larger outlets. Daniel's phone started ringing with interview requests, speaking invitations, other firms wanting to poach him. He declined them all. Victoria had believed in him when no one else did. He wasn't going anywhere. Emma started second grade that fall, confident and happy in ways that made Daniel's chest ache with gratitude. Lauren's visits had expanded to every Sunday, 4 hours unsupervised, and while they'd never be the nuclear family they'd once attempted, they'd found something functional. Emma had 2 parents who loved her, even if those parents couldn't love each other. It was late October when Victoria called Daniel into her office again. A year had passed since that rainy night, since the limousine and the impossible offer. since everything changed. Sit down, Daniel. I have a proposition for you. Daniel sat, no longer nervous in this office, no longer feeling like an imposter in these spaces. The Carlton Project has gotten national attention. We're being contacted by cities across the country wanting us to replicate the model. I'm creating a new division, Social Impact Design, dedicated exclusively to affordable housing and community development projects. I want you to head it. Daniel's mouth went dry. Head it? Victoria, I've been an architect for barely a year. You've been an architect for 7 years. You just spent 5 of them not getting to practice. But that time wasn't wasted, Daniel. You learned things no classroom could teach you. You understand the people we're designing for because you've lived their struggles. That's not a deficit. It's your greatest strength. I don't know what to say. Say you'll do it. Say you'll take everything you've learned and use it to change how this country thinks about affordable housing. Say you'll design buildings that give people dignity along with shelter. Daniel thought about the one-room apartment where he and Emma had lived, the broken elevator and thin walls and constant noise. He thought about the families who'd live in Carlton, who'd have safe homes because someone designed with their needs in mind. He thought about all the other families still struggling, still invisible, still waiting for someone to see them. I'll do it, Victoria smiled. Good. You start January 1st. We'll hire a team, your team, and you'll have full creative control. Design director salary, equity in the company, the resources to do this right. Sound acceptable? More than acceptable. Then let's change the world, one building at a time. That evening, Daniel took Emma to their favorite pizza place, a small Italian restaurant where they'd become regulars. Over pepperoni slices and root beer, he told her about the new position. So you'll be the boss? Emma asked, eyes wide. I'll be a boss. I'll have people working with me to design buildings all over the country. Will you have to travel? Sometimes, but never more than a few days, and Mrs. Rodriguez already said she'd stay with you when I do. Emma nodded, processing. Then, with the directness only children possess, she asked, Daddy, are we different now than we used to be? What do you mean, sweetheart? Like, we have more money and a nicer apartment and you have an important job. Does that make us different people? Daniel set down his pizza, giving the question the weight it deserved. Do you feel different? A little, but also the same, like I have more toys now and my own room, but you're still my daddy who makes funny voices when we read books and always remembers to cut the crusts off my sandwiches. Those parts didn't change. Exactly. We have more resources now, more opportunities, but the important parts, who we are, how we treat people, what we value, those don't change just because our circumstances did. Money makes life easier, but it doesn't make life meaningful. You know what makes life meaningful? What? Love, kindness, using whatever we have to help others. I got lucky, Emma. Someone saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Now I get to do the same thing for other people through my work. That's what matters. Emma smiled, a bit of sauce on her cheek. I think you were always important, Daddy. Even when you were a janitor, you were important to me. Daniel had to blink back tears. And you've always been everything to me. The holiday season approached, and with it came an unexpected call from Richard Whitmore. Mr. Brooks, I'm calling on behalf of Lauren Hale. She'd like to request a modification to the visitation schedule. Specifically, she'd like to have Emma for Christmas Eve this year. She and Marcus are getting married on New Year's Eve and wanted Emma to be part of the wedding. She's asking for your permission. Daniel's first instinct was to say no, to protect their traditions, to keep Emma close. But then he thought about the past year, about Lauren's consistent effort, about Emma's growing comfort with her mother. Let me talk to Emma. The conversation happened that night after dinner. Emma listened as Daniel explained Lauren's request, her face thoughtful. Would you want to go? Daniel asked. Will you be alone on Christmas? The question shouldn't have surprised him. Emma had always been more concerned about others than herself, but it did. I'll be fine, sweetheart. Mrs. Rodriguez invited me for dinner, and this isn't about me, it's about you and Mommy. Can I do both? Like Christmas Eve with Mommy and Christmas Day with you? If that's what you want, absolutely. Okay, I'll try it, but Daddy? She climbed into his lap, suddenly seeming younger than her 7 years. You're still my favorite person. You're mine too, baby. Always. Christmas Eve, Daniel drove Emma to Lauren's house in Belmont Heights. It was the first time he'd seen where she lived, a pristine Victorian with a manicured lawn and expensive cars in the driveway. Lauren met them at the door, Marcus standing awkwardly behind her. Thank you for this, Lauren said quietly. It means a lot. Emma wanted to come. That's what matters. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand. Mr. Brooks, we haven't officially met. I'm Marcus Redding. Daniel shook his hand, taking the measure of the man who'd been part of breaking up his marriage. Marcus looked nervous, which was somehow satisfying. Take good care of her, Daniel said. We will. I promise. Driving away from that perfect house, Daniel felt an unexpected peace. Lauren had Marcus, her big wedding, her picture-perfect life. And he had Emma's heart, her trust, her belief that Daddy could fix anything. He knew which one he'd choose. Christmas morning, Emma bounded through the door at 8 a.m., arms full of presents from Lauren, but her face glowing with joy at being home. Daddy, Merry Christmas! They spent the day in pajamas, opening presents and watching movies and making cookies that turned out lopsided but delicious. That evening, Mrs. Rodriguez came over with tamales and stories, and the three of them had dinner around Daniel's table, a makeshift family bound by choice rather than blood. Later, after Mrs. Rodriguez had gone home and Emma was asleep surrounded by new toys, Daniel sat in his living room with a cup of coffee and thought about the year that had passed. 12 months since Victoria had pulled up in that limousine. 12 months since his life had transformed from desperate struggle to purposeful abundance. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Merry Christmas, Daniel. Looking forward to seeing what you build in the year ahead. He typed back. Thank you for building me back up when I was broken. Merry Christmas. New Year's Eve found Daniel at Emma's bedside, reading her favorite book while fireworks started popping in the distance. She was supposed to be at Lauren's wedding, but she'd asked to come home early, saying the party was too loud and she missed Daddy. Daddy? She asked as he closed the book. What's your wish for the new year? Daniel thought about it. A year ago, he would have wished for a job, for stability, for custody of his daughter. All of those wishes had come true beyond what he could have imagined. I wish to keep building, he said finally. Buildings that help people. A life that makes you proud. A future where we both keep growing into who we're meant to be. That's a good wish. Emma yawned, her eyes drooping. Mine is that you stay happy. The kind of happy that stays. I think that wish already came true, sweetheart. He kissed her forehead and stood to leave, but she called him back. Daddy, I'm glad everything changed. I'm glad you're not a janitor anymore. But even when you were, even when we lived in the small apartment and didn't have much money, you were still the best daddy. You know that, right? Daniel's vision blurred. I know. Thank you for reminding me. Night, Daddy. Love you to the moon and back. Love you to the moon and back and around again. He stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her sleep, thinking about the journey they'd taken together. From that rainy night standing outside a law office, certain he was about to lose everything, to this moment, a home filled with warmth, a career that mattered, a daughter who was safe and loved and thriving. The fireworks intensified as midnight approached. Daniel walked to the window and looked out at the city, at the lights and celebrations and millions of people living their own complicated stories. Somewhere out there, someone was struggling the way he had struggled. Someone was convinced they were invisible, powerless, defeated. He thought about the buildings he'd design in the year ahead, the families who'd find homes in them, the lives that would change because someone had decided their dignity mattered. He thought about Carlton, now under construction, about the community pods and family units and all the intentional details that would make the difference between mere shelter and actual home. This was what it meant to rise, not just to escape poverty or achieve success, but to transform struggle into purpose, pain into compassion, loss into the determination to ensure others didn't suffer the same way. Victoria had given him an opportunity, but he'd built everything else himself. The late nights perfecting designs, the courage to believe he deserved better, The willingness to fight for his daughter even when the odds seemed impossible. The choice to turn his own experience of invisibility into a commitment to see others. The clock struck midnight. Fireworks exploded across the sky in bursts of color and light. Daniel Brooks, once a janitor dismissed as powerless, once a father certain he'd lose his child, once a man standing in the rain with nothing but dignity and determination, raised his coffee cup to the window. To second chances, he said quietly, and to never forgetting where we came from. In her room, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams 7-year-olds dream, safe in the knowledge that her daddy was there, would always be there, would never stop fighting for her. And in the morning, they'd wake up to a new year full of possibility, built on the foundation of everything they'd survived and everything they'd become. The story of Daniel Brooks wasn't about rags to riches. It was about invisibility to impact, about a man who'd been counted out finding someone who counted him in, about integrity rewarded, character recognized, and love triumphant over circumstance. It was about a father who'd stood in the rain and refused to drown. And now, finally, he was breathing. Now, finally, he was building. Now, finally, he was home.